Hi guys! Welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new legal advice content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first one is titled, I got a police report filed on me earlier on stealing my own property. Missouri. I worked for a really shitty body shop for almost 3 years. The owner is a crook, a slimy person. We butted heads a lot, he wouldn't pay me my overtime, wouldn't have my paychecks on time, would leave me in charge of things but then take all my credit. One of those bosses. I did some work for him for an old pickup truck that I could use as a parts truck for my other truck. He said he wanted 2 parts off of it. He gave it to me May of 2016. I said maybe, it depended on if I could use them or not. He said no, I need them. So I said okay. No written anything, just verbal. The truck sat in the same spot until yesterday. I quit back in November 2017. I moved my truck yesterday finally. He texted me today saying I stole it and that he filed a police report on me. I have the title in my name. Does he have legal grounds for a police report? Am I going to get arrested? My coworker is in the middle of suing the boss for slander and unpaid wages about $3,000. They will be going to court soon. Update. I got a phone call about 3 days after this post asking my side of whatever story was said. I just said I quit my job, my boss was mad and wanted to be a douche. The truck is in my name, his name was never on any title. The cop said okay, he'd get back to me if anything else came up and hung up. I read in the paper about 4 weeks later that he got in trouble for filing a false police report, though, so that brought a smile to my face. I haven't heard anything since the end of November, so I guess I'm in the clear. My buddy who is suing him is gonna be getting about $8,500 from him though. For back. The next one is titled, Purchased a condo, seller rented it to his nephew the day before contracts were signed. Now what? Location is New York, specifically Putnam County. Mostly what's in the title. Condo was vacant for roughly 60 days between closing and our attempt to move in. Upon getting there with our belongings, we discovered a new deadbolt on the door. The unit was vacant and had no deadbolt when we did our final walkthrough the day before closing. Tried knocking on the door. Got no answer, reached out to our realtor, who contacted the seller's agent and asked that he get in touch with his client to find out what the hell is going on, but at this point we assumed squatters. About an hour later, a young man showed up and produced a 36-month lease which had been paid in advance. All $1 of it. He told us it's between us and his uncle, and headed into the apartment. Our realtor is flabbergasted. He's encountered squatters and tenants who had to be evicted after refusing to leave at the end of the lease, but never anything like this. The police won't touch this either, which makes perfect sense given the context. Dude has a lease that predates our contract, albeit by 1 day, so as far as they're concerned it's a civil matter. The condo association is incredibly hands-off about owners leasing their properties, which is part of why this place was appealing, as I plan to rent it out myself when we are ready to buy a house, so they want nothing to do with the situation. To me it seems like the lease should be completely void given that it was executed in ridiculously bad faith, but I am nowhere near a lawyer. To that end, the attorney who handled the transaction for us is out of town till next week. My understanding is that he's camping or hiking or hunting or something along those lines and is basically incommunicado for the time being, but I am waiting to hear back from his admin to get details. He's a one-man firm, so there are no associates that can help me in the interim. I have no idea what to do here. Luckily the truck we were using to move is owned by a friend's business, and they have graciously offered to let us store our belongings in it while we get this sorted. Unluckily, my wife and I turned in the keys to our old apartment this morning, and as such we have nowhere to go. I'd be willing to do a cash for keys thing to get this guy out of our apartment, but he won't speak to us. Beyond that, do I have grounds to evict him? If so, how do I recoup the expenses associated with this whole clusterfuck? Sue the seller. Does the tenant have any sort of liability here? If I do pull of a successful cash for keys arrangement, can I sue the seller for that as well? What about the friend who is letting us keep all of our stuff in one of his trucks? Does he have any grounds to sue, or does the fact he is voluntarily letting us use the truck take that out of the equation? Is there anything else that I am not thinking of? I am shaking with anger right now, so I apologize for this being a bit of a rambling novel, and thanks in advance for any advice you can offer. Update 4:45 p.m. I just got a call from my attorney's admin. He's apparently close enough to civilization to have an internet connection in his cabin and should be checking in with her shortly, at which point she'll have him reach out to me. Apparently he was a civil litigator before he retired to real estate law, and she thinks he'll welcome an excuse to step into his old shoes and tear these people apart. Needless to say, I am looking forward to hearing from him. Update 2, 5:25 p.m. Just heard from both my realtor and my attorney. The evening seems to have found a way to get even more interesting, but the truck-owning friend is about 5 minutes out with my car. We're going to meet my realtor for dinner, my closing documents and some badly needed drinks, said the guy who doesn't really drink. I'll update tomorrow morning if not tonight, but till then thank you for the advice and reassurance. Wish me luck. Update 3. I am gonna make up some names this time around because referring to people as the female seller or the tenant is cumbersome as hell. After the mess on Wednesday, I met my realtor for dinner and to grab my closing docs. The seller's agent actually wound up stopping by as well. He arranged this with my guy. He apologized profusely, told us he knows the family and he's confident we'll be able to get things sorted quickly. I didn't get my hopes up, but he picked up our tab and bought a round of drinks while he was there. So hey, when life gives you lemons, make a superhuman amount of whiskey? I don't think that's accurate, but it was my approach and I stand by it. Anyway, I wound up speaking with the seller, Anne, yesterday morning, and got the rundown on the situation. It turns out the unwelcome tenant, Bill, is actually her nephew, not her ex's Charlie. She was absolutely livid with Bill, and promised me the apartment would be vacant as soon as possible even if she had to physically drag him out herself and pay for movers to take all of his stuff. She also gave me assurances that she'd cover whatever this ordeal has cost. From there, she said she was going to check in with her sister Diane, who was dealing with Bill as we spoke, and get back to me as soon as she knows something, but again promised that the absolute worst case scenario would be Bill starting to move out by early afternoon. Maybe half an hour later she calls back and tells me that Diane had rented a truck and Bill was in the process of packing his stuff up. Turns out Bill had recently experienced something pretty ducking awful, and as a result had sort of become preoccupied with seeking approval from adult males. Charlie was at the top of this list. Apparently his midlife crisis consisted of buying a Harley and trying to carry himself like a badass, and Bill bought the act hook, line and sinker. And a lot of you guys assumed correctly, Bill cooked up the scheme to basically extort me for a cash for keys deal. From what I was told, Charlie figured a doctor from NYC would just pay out right away to be done with it. For what it's worth, I am not an MD, nor am I from NYC, but you do you, Chuck. Anyway, at this point, Anne threw me a curveball. She and Diane were both at peace with the fact that I was going to pursue this with the police, but asked if I could meet Bill so he could look me in the eye to apologize because she wanted him to get an understanding of the fact that his actions hurt a real, live human being. I agreed to it. I was hoping to see if I could get in to check the condition of the place anyway. So yesterday evening I went up to the apartment and met my tenant as he was loading up the truck with his stuff. We wound up speaking for a while and well, I am gonna disappoint some of you here. He seems like a genuinely good kid who got taken advantage of by a legitimate piece of garbage. There were a lot of tears and innumerable apologies, and I 100% believe that these were based on genuine remorse for what he did, not regret about getting caught. I'll just say it here because I don't think I was being as slick as I'd hoped and dancing around it anyway, but the kid recently lost his father, and I don't see any reason to duck up his life with a criminal record over a ridiculously, incredibly, stupid mistake that he was to a great extent manipulated into making anyway. For whatever it's worth, if getting involved in a stupid scam like this was the worst thing that I did at 19. Yeah, let's just say that I was a remarkably stupid and reckless kid. I lucked out and never wound up getting caught in a situation that could have had significant legal consequences, but if I had and I hadn't been given a second chance, I'd be living a very different life right now. As far as the money goes, Anne and I are going to figure out what's what, and I don't want to explain how because it involves details about her personal life, but the money will technically be coming out of Charlie's pocket anyway. She started by hiring some movers to unload my truck, which is taking place as I type this. Bill left the apartment in shockingly good condition, but I am basing that on what sort of damage 19-year-old me would have passively done to an apartment, so this may be a touch skewed. Either way, no damage has been done aside from some very minor cosmetic stuff. A couple of light scuffs from moving furniture and things like that, all of which would become immaterial when I redo the apartment in anticipation of renting it out, so I am not going to concern myself with any of that stuff. As far as Charlie goes, well, I mentioned in a few comments that my attorney, who is too majestically vicious for fake names so he just becomes capital M my capital A attorney, is a super intense older guy and later found out is a retired civil litigator who can't sit still long enough to actually retire. Yeah, he's out for ducking blood. Turns out Charlie does have himself some assets, and my attorney is pretty confident that they will become my assets soon enough. I had a brief chat with one of the officers who came by on Wednesday. He's a friend of Diane's, apparently. This everyone knows everyone thing is still very foreign to me, and will be going by the station to issue a statement or file a report. Whatever it is you do in this situation. Some of you expressed concerns that he may have fled the country, but the concept of Charlie leaving the county, let alone United States, is very funny to Diane an officer friend of Diane. Seems like Charlie is just a dumbass who thought he could pull a fast one, and will be easy enough to find at one of the local watering holes when it's time for him to be picked up. I absolutely do not believe in throwing around assumptive diagnoses for fun, but I've made an exception in this case and decided that Charlie has full-bore antisocial personality disorder because it makes me feel better about things for some reason. Anyway, I have been typing this piecemeal throughout the afternoon, which has essentially been a test of my wife's patience. I'm not dumb enough to incur the wrath of a tiny Puerto Rican woman who has spent the last couple of days stressed out of her mind, so I'm gonna call this a post. Thanks again to everyone on this sub for all of the advice given and sympathies expressed. I'm lucky as hell to have had this end the way it did. The last one is titled, Tree Cutting Company Says That Electric Company Has an Easement I Have Never Heard About. Washington State. I have received what amounts to a handwritten notice from a tree cutting company informing me that they have been ordered by the electric company to cut brush and trees on my property this week. The note claims that this is being done so that the electric company can access an easement that runs through my property. A new subdivision is being put in. I figure this is the electricity to it. I have no knowledge of any such easement, and did not hear about it during the home buying process nor when researching the parcel and corresponding with the county regarding any easements that I have. I do have an easement on the opposite side of the property for a neighbor's driveway. What do I do from here? I imagine that if this easement does exist, that there is nothing I can do about it, but I don't want to accidentally allow them to establish an easement on my property, which I can only imagine would tank my property value. So far I have emailed the electric company and my county land planning division, but no replies yet from either. Shouldn't they have mailed me something showing that they have the right to send tree cutters and, apparently, digging equipment into my yard? Update. So long story short, a power company easement has been discovered on land I own, which was not found by the title company during the home buying process. I have entered a claim with them, and looking at my policy under exceptions from coverage it says, this policy does not insure against loss or damage, and the company will not pay costs, attorney's fees or expenses that arise by reason of 4. Easements, claims of easements or encumbrances which are not shown by the public records. So, that makes it sounds like the insurance only covers nothing, at least in regards to easements? If it was in public records it would already be known about. Is this normal? Should I get the advice of a lawyer now, or wait until the insurance company responds to my claim? Thanks for listening.